So in 2014, again, I was in Thailand, and then I was heading to Indonesia, going to the Komodo Islands, and went over there and saw my sister, who happened to be in Bali, and then went to the Gili Islands, and from there I got a boat, I think it was about 3 days, down to the Komodo Islands to see the Komodo dragons, and that was quite incredible as well, and something inspired by David Attenborough. That was it was really hard to get there when he went down there years ago, and then back to Thailand, I think, and then over to Myanmar, and so travelled all the way through Myanmar to Bagan, up the Irrawaddy River, and then walking around the temples by myself, and that was amazing to do that as well, and got a train up there as well, and all through the place, and talking to people again and listening to their experiences and stuff, and walking through the landscape. Did a multi-day walk, stayed with some tribes who are vegetarian, or groups I should say, that are vegetarian, so that was interesting, something different with them. And it was a moment of tranquility, I suppose, there. And I was talking to people saying, yeah, the tourists are going to come, but then, you know, the situation got worse over there again, and it's even worse now, actually. So that never even happened. But I remember going to temples and stuff with my shoes off, walking through up tons of steps and seeing statues and things, and that was just a beautiful, tranquil world there, and eating the food as well, the different types of noodles that they have. And I even had a type of fungus that if you have it, then you're supposed to live another 10 years. It's as expensive as gold by weight, apparently. Some kind of like a type of mushroom, but very small, and they usually mix it with honey. But a guy bought some, and then he gave me some to try, so I tried that. And then after that I went to Nepal, and I spent about 3 months there. I walked absolutely everywhere. So I went down to the Langtang National Park with a friend, and we walked to the peaks down there, and then to the Tibetan border, and we could see, you know, there's the Nepal side and then the China side, and you know, they've got weapons and everything, and they're very serious on the China side. And just explored around there and went through rhododendrons and stuff, and fields of marijuana as well. At first there were a few plants around, and then I saw huge old ones with almost trunks on them like this, and they were about 7 meters high or something, and I saw a few just on the side of the path, and then we crested a hill, and there was just whole fields, almost a valley full of marijuana plants. That was kind of interesting. And then I had to get back to Kathmandu, and there was some protests going on in one department, I suppose, or province, and we couldn't get transport back. So I had to walk with my friend 60 k's, I think it was, in one day. So we started really early, and he just set the pace, and we just kept on going until we got to a hotel where there were still buses coming in, going back and forth between there and Kathmandu. Got back to Kathmandu, and then I flew to Bhutan and just spent a few days there just to have a look. There's something called the Snowman Trek there, which is about a month-long trek, which I wouldn't mind doing at some point, but just went to see Tiger's Nest, the temple that's up on the side of a cliff that you might have seen photos of. And it was quite amazing flying into, Thimphu, the capital. I think it's one of the hardest places to fly in and out of for the pilots, because they have to come in over some mountains and then drop down and then do a turn, and then they're at the airport. But yeah, it was interesting again. Another world, another kind of Shangri-La kind of place. This place that you kind of forget about. There's all these countries around, and then Bhutan is up there just doing its thing by itself. And yeah, it was good. It was interesting to talk to the people and to hear their perspective on things and how to run things as well. And then I flew back to Nepal and went up to Everest. So that took about 10 days or something, 2 weeks, something like that, and flew in and out very cleanly. You fly into Lukla airport, which is, they say it's the most dangerous, or one of the most dangerous airports in the world, because it's like this and there's just a cliff here, and the plane comes in, you land, and then on the way out you have to go off this cliff as well. But it's more because of the weather, because the weather can change at any time and like just blast the planes around, and there's plenty of crashes, or there's delayed flights. You know, you might be waiting 3 days or more. Some people, you can walk from Kathmandu as well, but I walked from Lukla and went up to Everest, and that was great. It was amazing to see these huge peaks, and every day I'd get up really early and walk up somewhere, and then the rest of the people would wake up later and have breakfast, and then we'd continue the route up to Everest. But I'd already done a walk in the darkness, and then to see the sunrise and take some photos, because I didn't want to miss anything. And I had the energy, so I thought I may as well do it. And it's so great because everywhere you stay in these what they call tea houses, but they've actually got menus of hot food all the time. So the thing to eat is dal bhat, which is dal, so lentils, and bhat is rice. And they always give you more, like whatever you want to eat, you can have more rice or more dal, whatever. But as you go up, then it gets simpler and simpler. In Kathmandu, it might be something with 10 different dishes, different curries and some meat and chicken and rice and everything. But higher up, it's just very basic, a few vegetables, the dal and the rice, but still really good. And that's what, the Sherpas are living off, really, and a lot of the people there are living off too. So I went up, no problems, all the way up to the base camp, and there's another peak that you can go up to. What is it? Kalapatar, yeah. So they just call that a hill as well. My friend joked and said that anything under 7,000 metres is a hill. It has to be over 7,000 to be a mountain. But anyway, I left at 3 o'clock in the morning from the last camp up there at Everest, just on the normal walking route, not once you start climbing up the mountain itself. Where you need specialised gear and you have to cross the Khumbu icefall. But I left at 3 o'clock in the morning and made my way up to Kalapatar. It's another peak that you can get a good view of Everest. And I got up there, and then it started to become light. And I saw something in the sky, this big, basically a shadow. And it was the shadow of Everest. Just the sun, the first light, just projecting that shadow into the sky, this giant shadow. And then it started to become light, and in the background there was another mountain that just looks like a rocket. I'm trying to remember the name now, but I can't think of it. But I set my camera down on a rock and just took a long exposure so you can still see the stars and stuff. And then I kept going up, and you're out, I think 5,600 metres there, something like that. And there was a little bird there just waiting for some food. I suppose people get there and then give them crackers and things like that. But on the way up, I could hear avalanches coming down and stuff. And then I got up there and I was by myself, no one else there. And there'd just been fresh snowfall, so it was perfect. And looking down and waiting for the sun to come up, and I saw it. Those first rays of light, red, flaming light, and you could see the wind at 200 k's an hour or whatever it blows at the top of Everest, the highest point in the world. I was looking at it there, and I shot a photo and then saw the sun coming up. And when you're up, for me, when I'm up above 5,000 metres, especially in that world as well, you are on the roof of the world, so you see across to China and stuff, Tibet over there, and you're sitting up in this other world again, this world of silence, and it's so amazing to be there. And it was so amazing to be there by myself as well, because other people didn't arrive for about another hour, I don't think. So it was surreal to have that by myself. And that's what happens to me so many times. You just have this all-encompassing moment where, yes, that's the time to take a photo, and you forget about the camera and stuff, and just you get the image, or you get the images of that feeling. Hopefully, when you take the photos, hopefully that comes across. But I was running around at 5,000 meters just getting photos because I was so excited to get these images because of the changing light, and just because of the place I was, and that I knew that I'd be going down the next day as well. So when morning came, then I went with the group up to Everest Base Camp itself, which is it's on the Khumbu icefall, and it changes all the time. I think it was about, again, 5,500 or 600 metres. Went up there, and then we started the trek back down, and then all the way back to Lukla, and then flew back to Kathmandu, no problems, and back into this world again, like going back to Colombia from Cuba, a world of food and colour and all the rest of it. And it was great. It's great to see. It's great to have both those worlds, the wilderness and the modern world as well, with these conveniences and stuff, and to talk to people, and excited people. Everyone's excited because they're about to go trekking and stuff. But it would get a little bit darker this time, because next I was going to go on the Annapurna trek, and that was, again, I think that was another 2 weeks or something. So walking through there, walking past all these beautiful mountains, and you see Mustang, which is another area of Nepal that you can continue walking in, and there's the legend that Jesus was out there. There's some, I think, temple devoted to him out in that region. But anyway, there's a pass. The highest pass on the Annapurna trek is the Thorong La Pass. I think it's 5,400 metres, about that anyway. And so we were down the bottom of that, and then you go up. You start in the middle of the night to cross it, and so started walking up, and then as the light came, then again I was running around. This is at close to 5,000 metres, just shooting photos and stuff. It didn't matter to me. I was used to the altitude and everything, so it was fine. No snow around, apart from like in the peaks and stuff. And so we crossed the pass, no problem. Went down the other side, and then the next morning I saw that there was those clouds that I recognise from back in Tasmania that bring snow. And I didn't think too much of it though. But we found out, then we continued, and it was raining, and there were landslides coming down and everything. And then I said to the guide, because we were with a guide, that I have to run, I have to keep going, because I'm starting to get hypothermic, because I know when I start to get hypothermic. And I just ran ahead, and I was going to get to the next tea house to get warm and drop my stuff off and maybe change my clothes or something. I had to jump over rivers and things. And then I got there, and I found out that a storm had hit. There was a cyclone that was going through India, then it veered off and hit Nepal, and it hit the Thorong La Pass and Annapurna and Dhaulagiri. I think there was people up there. That's about the 7th highest mountain in the world. I think you can see that in the distance on the trek. But yeah, people weren't expecting it, and a few people died there, a few people died on Annapurna. But where we had just crossed, I think 38 people died or something like that, and maybe 400 had to get airlifted out, because where there was no snow the day before, it was up, knee-deep snow or more, and there's only one tiny hut at the top, and there wasn't enough room for the people to stay in there. So some people decided to walk through the snow. Others, were almost forced to get out of there for whatever reason. And other people as well, they had the information. We didn't have the information, but other people had the information that there was a storm coming, and they could have stayed down the bottom without going across the pass, but they wanted to keep going. They forced it, and they died because of that. Because they forced it, they didn't want to spend more time waiting for the weather. And then other groups did wait down the bottom before they crossed the pass, but we were the last ones out. They shut it down, and so we kept walking. There was no one behind us while there was absolute tragedy that happened, and no one was prepared. Even I didn't have enough gear. If it had snowed, if we'd been in that position, I wouldn't have had enough gear. I just had lighter gear, and that's why I was running along freezing. And so the next morning I woke up and I was looking out at Dhaulagiri, again this about the 7th most highest, tallest mountain in the world, and I took a photo of that too. But the silence. But out there, people had died, and people were still suffering in hospitals and stuff because they had to airlift people, and some groups walked back, I suppose, as well, multiple days to get back, if not a week, to get back to the start of the trek. But as I said, we continued and got out of there, and then down in Pokhara as well, and I went to Lumbini to the birthplace of the Buddha, and I sat there looking at the birthplace of the Buddha, and there was a Bodhi tree as well, not the Bodhi tree that he meditated and became enlightened under, but a different one. And there was a monk there, and birthplace of the Buddha was just there, and the monk said, "Oh, do you want me to pray for your family?" And I said, "No, it's okay." And then he said, "Oh, I can bless them and stuff." I said, "Oh, okay." And then he did his thing, and then he tapped the ground like he wanted money, and so I gave him some money. But I thought it was interesting that in just meters away from where the Buddha was born, someone was asking for money. A monk was asking for money, and I wondered just how much he'd learnt. But I looked at that in silence, and went back to Kathmandu, and then after about 3 months of being there and seeing this amazing place, it was time to leave. And then, the year before there'd been an accident on Everest. I think 16 Sherpas died, something like that, and this is 2014. And then in 2015 the earthquakes hit, and they destroyed lives, not just buildings and other structures, but destroyed lives as well. So just this moment of calm in Nepal before destruction came again. And that's been the story a lot of times. There's been a massive wake of destruction behind me. So many people have died, and earthquakes and all the rest of it. And I'll talk about that later, just how many things happened just after I was in a place as well. And I'll try to remember and then talk about things in the moment as well. So leaving Kathmandu again, I went down to Bardia, which is in the lowlands of Nepal, and really hot because you're much closer to the sea level. And I had two options. I could have gone to another place where people usually go, that's close to the Indian border on another side, but I went to a place called Bardia and descended down in a bus, and I could sit up the front. I was sitting with the driver, so it was amazing. And then later on I was on another bus, and I was sitting next to a Nepalese kickboxer, and we were going through this section of jungle where there were a lot of tigers apparently at night, and we stopped at a place and had dal bhat, which is everywhere, just to get some food. And then we arrived at where I was going to camp, and there was a rhino there that they had, and so I looked into its eyes, and it seemed to be sad, had a lot of sadness in its eyes, or maybe it was just tired. But anyway, I went out with a guide on an elephant at first, and we were exploring, looking for tigers. And then we walked across a river as well, and a crocodile just came across, and then we were walking through the grass looking for tigers, and we found a fresh footprint, and then kept on walking, and then suddenly all around it exploded with running animals, and it was again wild boars that just exploded in all directions. But it was so lucky they went in the other direction, because they were like bullets. They would have just impaled me and killed me probably, but they went off away from us. That happened I remember that happened in Africa as well. There was buffaloes that stampeded, but they stampeded in the opposite direction, and I felt the earth thundering as well, or rumbling, and my heart pumping as well. That got me going a bit. But yeah, so we were waiting to spot a tiger down there in Bardia, but what came along was a Bardia elephant. It's a different subspecies of elephant, I suppose, and it's supposed to be more ancient and more aggressive. And so there were some mahouts there with their elephants, watering them just in the river. And then this wild elephant came in, and they were really scared because the wild elephants disturbed the working elephants and stuff. And a guy went into the bush as we were coming out, and we said, "Oh, you shouldn't go in there, there's an elephant there." And then he came running out as well, and we heard the elephant trumpet as well. And then we went to a lookout, and we were just waiting there for a while, waiting for the tigers still, but we saw some movement, and then there were wild rhinos that just appeared out of nowhere, and so they were wandering around for a bit. And then I left there and went back to Kathmandu, and I think that was the end of my trip. After being to many corners of of Nepal, and exploring and walking, really 3 months of walking, and it was amazing. And it's an amazing place to do that, because you can just take a little bit of gear, and you've got the tea houses all the time, so you've got hot food, so you can walk right in the wilderness with these gigantic peaks around, and do it in a fairly relaxed way, as long as you're careful. And actually on the Annapurna track, I remembered that, again, I got up really early in the morning, and I saw something inside the compound of the tea house, and it was like a cat-like creature, and it slunk along, and then it jumped over the wall there, and I went outside. And then I was going to go up one side of a mountain so I could shoot another mountain in the morning, and there was a bridge there, and I went outside, and I saw it go across the bridge like this, low down, and then shoot off. And I went to take my photos and stuff, and then the next morning I realised that there'd been multiple sightings of a snow leopard. So I saw a snow leopard, something real, and from close as well, from only 10 metres away or something like that. And someone had photos of it. It had been taking goats from the area. And so that's the end of the Nepal journey, the adventure.